Hello everybody, welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video and all of that. We're trying to get to 30K, so it would be much appreciated. So, Jrue Holiday was just traded to the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for Anfernee Simons. I am possibly mistaken on this. I didn't go ahead and go back and verify, but I believe I actually suggested an Anfernee Simons trade potentially being something that the Celtics should look into because I felt like they needed a bit more punchy of a scoring guard at their disposal. And replacing Jrue Holiday with that exact type of player makes a lot of sense. And I personally feel as though this is a home run trade for the Boston Celtics, a very good way to kick off their offseason, given that we're probably going to see multiple trades from them. So they move Jrue Holiday to Portland, and they're getting the younger player, they're getting the much better scorer and shooter, and they're getting him on an expiring contract, which is very interesting because Jrue Holiday's contract is a 2+1, with that +1 being a player option that I'm pretty certain he is going to be taking, because by 2027, I believe he will be like 30, going on 37 years old. I seriously doubt that Jrue Holiday will be worth $37 million on the open market at that point in his career. I don't think he's worth that right now. So Boston is both clearing cap space and giving themselves a whole lot of financial flexibility, while also giving this chance to Anfernee Simons to potentially be a long-term piece, or if he's not have major consequences as a result of it. So obviously you're taking a huge hit to the defensive side of the floor when you make this move, but something that I felt about the Celtics that needed to change was just that, rather simply, they have this like collectivized system of everybody being able to score, everybody being able to create and all of that, and that's great. However, there is a level of no one besides for Jason and sometimes Jaylen Brown being that great at breaking down the defense. Porzingis also was, just because he was an absolute mismatch destroyer, but not available, glass cannon and all of that. But Simons, this just adds more punch to your scoring ability. This adds more off the dribble juice, more pull-up shooting ability, and much better three-point shooting, because even though he had a down year shooting the ball this year at 36%, still taking 8.5 of them a game, still taking a very high volume of pull-up three-pointers, and with his long pre-established history 3 seasons before this of taking 8.5 of them a game and shooting 39% on those, to me it's very self-evident that he is a great high-volumed three-point shooter, and he's a pretty good distributor at that. Not someone I would recommend as your primary playmaking option, but I just think he brings a lot more to the table offensively than Jrue Holiday did on this Celtics team, especially in this previous season. So for Boston, I really don't have any notes. I think this is a great deal, especially also for this upcoming year. If they intend on being competitive in the Eastern Conference, despite of the fact that they don't have Jason Tatum, then this would be a way to do it. If they end up not trading Jaylen Brown, if they end up not trading Porzingis, and he could potentially play a stretch of the season. Given how wide open the Eastern Conference is right now, Anfernee Simons being a 20-point-per-game scorer, giving Jaylen Brown a teammate who can score 20 points per game, there might be a route towards the Boston Celtics still being a playoff-caliber team this year as a result of this deal. But again, I like how non-committal it is. They are not committed to paying Anfernee Simons long-term. They have just given themselves a whole bunch of cap flexibility, and they are going to have this year where they get to try players out, get to figure out what they actually want. And I think Anfernee Simons is a great player to take a swing on, because he's somebody who we've seen score at a high volume on not very good Portland Trail Blazers teams. So this year, going to be the ultimate litmus test. Are you capable of being a good, efficient scoring option on a competent NBA team? Or he also could just be somebody who can get buckets and hopefully sell a ticket or two in this year that you are punting on. Either way, I think there's a lot of different possible outcomes for this deal for Boston, and that flexibility I think is exactly what they're looking for, while I think you're getting a younger player who it's very well possible that Anfernee Simons is a better player than Jrue Holiday next year. I wouldn't say that he is right now just simply because he's a higher volume scorer, but he's got a huge edge on that side of the ball. Jrue has a huge edge on the other side of the ball. We'll see how it shakes up, but the overarching point, good on Boston for making a move that gives them this much flexibility. Now, for Portland, I have mixed feelings because on one hand, Simons is somebody that they were probably going to trade one way or the other. On the other hand, I don't know why you traded him to hurt your cap situation in the long term. I don't know why you traded for a 34-year-old player as your primary asset, and I don't know why you included second-round picks to get the deal done. Don't get me wrong, I don't feel like Anfernee Simons had some crazy trade value given the fact that he is a pretty piss-poor defensive player, and, when you're in the NBA as a smaller guard, even though Simons is 6'3", he's more of a shooting guard. That's his listed position on Basketball Reference. He's kind of an undersized shooting guard, and you have to be a level of good on offense that goes beyond just like averaging 19 points and 5 assists. So I understand that he wasn't nearly as valuable as his offensive production would lead you to believe, especially considering the fact that he was also expiring. How many teams want to take on the risk of overpaying him? Not many. But that said, I still think you could have gotten a first-round pick for the guy. I think you still could have got a player who has potentially a couple of years on this Blazers team, where I think what they're going for with Jrue Holiday is kind of a stabilizing force plus mentorship and veteran leadership. Like, get him in there for Scoot Henderson, who is obviously a very important part of this Blazers team. However, I feel as though this is the type of trade you make when you are trying to start being competitive, start competing for a playoff spot, and where you have enough young talent to feel like you have a core to go into the future with to eventually build into a consistent playoff team and hopefully a contender even. I don't agree at all that the Portland Trailblazers are at that point. Scoot Henderson did not have a particularly positive second year. Better than his first year, shot the ball better, but his volume did not go up in that process. He's 20 years old, still plenty of time to turn this around, but I don't think Scoot Henderson has given you the indication that he's your franchise player to build around and that you should be making deals like this to try and elevate his game. I think you should look at it as, okay, Scoot Henderson probably isn't going to be our savior, so we should still be bad for a couple of more years and get high draft picks and eventually select somebody big. Now, I don't remember their position in the 2025 NBA draft, so let me go ahead and look at that real quick. The Trailblazers have the 11th pick in the draft. I think they also have the 12th. I think they have 11 and 12. Is the Bulls pick this year not going to Portland? I'm pretty sure it is. It's not saying that's the case, but I'm pretty sure the Bulls pick was top 10 protected and it belonged to the Trailblazers. So whether it's one first-round pick or two, you have to really hope that you land somebody huge there, because Scoot's good. Kamara is very good. That's someone you can feel is a long-term option. I do very much like Shaedon Sharpe. However, I can't say that he has given super strong indications that he's a big cornerstone franchise piece. Averaged 18 points this year. He's good inside the arc. However, 31% from three, 33% the season before that. Not super encouraging there. Also not a very natural playmaker. 2.8 to 2.1 assist to turnover ratio. I think this is too early. They are committing to this core too early. Donovan Clingan is also a player who can be pretty good. I think highly of him. Denny Avdia. Fuck that guy. But also, he was really good this previous year. Like, there's talent here, and I no doubt think that if they really pushed to be a play-in team in the Western Conference, they could do that. But what exactly is the long-term goal there? What is exactly the long-term success in your view there? Because if Scoot Henderson does not break out as a star player, if whoever you draft doesn't break out as a star player, and like Shaedon Sharpe doesn't, Donovan Clingan doesn't, which I don't think Clingan really projects to be a star offensive player, a very, very impactful player, but not that type of guy. I just think you're going for a win now mentorship type of move well before you have the pieces established where you should be making that kind of decision. That is the type of trade you make when you are basically at the end of a rebuild. I think the Portland Trailblazers need another year or two of being high in the draft lottery, and I recognize that there are negatives to that, and I guess Portland is just more interested in being a competitive team than anything else, but I don't know. I would personally feel like after a decade of constant Damian Lillard trade rumors and constantly people being like, damn, this isn't enough, constantly not doing a good job building around him, to have that situation at hand for that long and then to just walk right back into the same situation, I fundamentally disagree with that. My friend, also named Jacob, the only Portland Trailblazers fan that I do know, he's fuming about this deal, so I've gotten the indication from him that it's a bad deal. And as far as I'm looking at it, I don't like, look, the Blazers won 36 games last year. That's not horrible. 36 wins gets you the 12th seed in the Western Conference. We're not talking about an Eastern Conference team. And again, even if Jrue Holiday is the move that gets them to be a playoff level team, I don't know why you're going for that right now. It seems very much like the Trailblazers are jumping the gun. The fact that they gave up draft capital, the fact that they traded for a player nearly a decade older, and the fact that they have prolonged their cap situation for a further 2 years, I recognize that they don't necessarily have that much to worry about in terms of paying dudes, because by the time... Actually, that's not true. Sharpe, probably Kamara too, because wasn't he a second-round pick? His deal's probably short. Yeah, you're going to be paying Kamara, you're going to be paying Scoot, you are going to be paying Sharpe, and that's all going to be while Jrue Holiday's $37 million are on the book. You also have Jeremy Grant, who's making a bunch of money going forward and is not going to be easy to move. He has the same situation. Jeremy Grant and Jrue Holiday both have $35+ million player options for the 2027-2028 offseason, which is when you're going to be paying Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, Toumani Camara. Yeah, bad trade. Bad trade for the Portland Trailblazers. I like the idea of Scoot being mentored by Jrue Holiday. However, the consequence of that, I think, will be large. I do not think this was a good decision by the Blazers. So I'm going to give the Celtics an A, and I'm going to give the Blazers a D+. And I'm only giving it a D+ to give it room for it actually being good. Maybe Scoot Henderson is about to have a breakout, most improved player season, but I don't think he's given you enough of an indicator to feel this comfortable investing in something so short-sighted. I think it's bad, but I'm willing to admit that I'm not as tapped in on the Portland Trailblazers as maybe I should be. So if you're a Blazers fan and you disagree with me, if you feel differently about this trade, please let me know why. But as far as I'm looking at it, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.